Hey, everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is the 185th episode. This is right, not a CES episode, a full episode. So get ready for all of the mayhem that you're seeing. I'm Ryan Schrow.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Al Montano.
Close enough. If you are watching on the video version, you may be wondering what happened to our YouTube channel. When did all of our video go black and white? And I just wanted to point out that this is done on purpose. We are part of the SOPA PIPA conversation here on the Twit channel. If you've been to the PC Perspective website all day, which hopefully all of you have been to many, many times over and over and over again, you will see that we have our censorship ads up kind of on the sides, informing people of how they can go take information or take action on this type of thing. I know, Jeremy, this doesn't directly affect you. I guess it does. It affects everybody.
Want to bet?
It's not, yeah.
You want to bet it doesn't affect Canadians? It's
So
just
how
we
would
can't
it
directly
affect you
affect it.
Okay. So you're depending on the Americans, huh?
Yeah, on more or less. Come on, guys. Go team.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, this is something that has been talked about on the Twit network all day, and it has been a very big topic throughout the tech community over the past week or two building up to this so-called SOPA strike. Some of the major websites have gone offline. Reddit was offline for 12 hours, which I don't know what people did to get through school all day. Google had their logo blacked out with a link to where you can sign petitions, where you can get information about how to contact your congressman and that kind of stuff. And Wikipedia, of course, the other really major one that has basically been down the whole day. There are some loopholes to get that information that you want off Wikipedia still if you need to. But obviously all the news, all the major news channels have been covering this all day. CNN, MSNBC, all those guys, Fox News. And it seems to have had some effect so far. Initial reports are showing. Now, we record this at about 10 p.m. in the evening on Wednesday the 18th. So we've already been able to change some congressmen's mind, right? We've already got things moving in the right direction, actually, which is good to see. When enough people stand up and actually notice what's going on in your government, apparently it can make a difference. I don't know. I don't have any other specific comments on this topic. Anybody else? I know, Jeremy, you were saying that it would affect even you. You don't get a voice in it, and your government doesn't really get a voice in what we decide to do. But any other thoughts or angry comments they want to make about the potential of this?
I'm thinking with the outcry, it's just going to die on the vine. At least I'm hoping it will.
The fear is that it will die on the vine now, and then in 60 days, it will come back up, slightly modified, maybe a different name. Nobody will notice this time, or many, many fewer people will notice, and it will still kind of go through. I hope that is not the case. Hopefully we'll have people that are still paying close enough attention that they can remind the rest of us that it's happening. And if we have to repeat the same stuff we have to do, then we'll do it as many times as it takes until people finally get the idea.
You know what I find really, really interesting is the cross-section of politicians who are for it and against it. I mean, it's so across party lines. It's interesting. So all those people saying, Democrats are trying to regulate us to death, they look across the aisle and say, well, he's against it, he's against it, he's against it. And then you have all these, Republicans who are supposedly pro-business and in the pockets of the RIA, like Issa, he's, absolutely against it. So it's nice to see something where we don't have this whole Republican versus Democrat and gridlock. At least we can now see who gets paid by the media associations and who does not.
Yep.
Somebody just posted a link to a tweet, a message about tweet from Gizmodo that apparently somebody on the RIAA Twitter feed posted, quote, after Wikipedia blackout somewhere, a student today is doing original research and getting his or her facts straight. Perish the thought. And then their comment is, RIAA reminds us why we hate them with obnoxious smartass tweet.
The best quote I've seen for it so far is under SOPA you can get 5 years for uploading a Michael Jackson song, which is 1 year more than the doctor who killed him.
Yeah, I saw that one as well.
Yeah.
Pertinent and necessary information to spread. So, let's talk about hardware. We just had CES last week. Hopefully you checked out our 4 super awesome episodes of the podcast recorded live from our hotel suite at various states of sobriety.
I highly recommend, what was it, the 4th one in?
Episode 3, I believe, is the...
Best
check all
intro
3.
ever.
Listen, you want to listen to all of them, but one of them has a particularly humorous introduction.
Humor.
Brought to us by our own Josh Wall.
Wow, you guys must have been slacking off. We didn't even have time to get drunk 2 years ago.
Yeah,
A year ago.
exactly.
I don't think we were actually drunk in any of them. We were just stinking tired.
Oh, that I understand.
That's true. That's
I
true.
can see.
We recorded one. We recorded some early in the day and some late in the day, like night, like after midnight, 1 o'clock, those types of things. After walking around all day, it definitely gets to you. So we've covered all the CES stuff. We're going to touch on a couple of things from CES, but if you missed our CES news, go back and listen to the CES Special Edition podcasts 1 through 4, either on the website or through the RSS feeds, that type of thing. First, we'll go through a couple of articles. A few articles would have one. Matt Smith, who was featured prominently on our 4 CES podcasts, as he is our mobile guy, did a review of the ePad Transformer Prime. This was pre-ice cream sandwich, so this is using what was it, an Android 3 point something, whatever that was, before the 4.0 release had come out. So you can see his opinions on this Transformer Prime, which is the updated 10-inch tablet from ASUS, this one uses Tegra 3. And then he has another article pending in the next couple of weeks, maybe next week, looking at Ice Cream Sandwich as well as the mobile dock, keyboard dock that comes with it, maybe how that adjusts its battery life thoughts. Let's see. Matt also wrote up a review of, this is actually an interesting thing called a retrospective review of the Acer Extenza 5420. What's interesting about this laptop is that it's old. It's very old. Let's see. What year does he say he bought it? In 2007. And it was an interesting article that he proposed to me that he wanted to write and post on the site, where in which he reviewed this laptop again as if it had just been released. So he went through and looked at the screen quality, looked at the keyboard quality, looked at how well things were built, how well they held up, what the performance was like to other machines in the market today. It was actually using an AMD Turion 64 X2 processor, so that gives you an idea of where it sits in terms of performance. 2 gigs of memory, 160 gig hard drive, a 1280 by 800 15-inch screen, which is pretty small. But there are some benefits to it. It had 4 USB 2.0 ports. It had FireWire, S-Video, VGA, headphone, microphone, line-in, express card, PC card, and a memory card reader, all on this 6-pound laptop. And it's actually a really interesting read, and it's interesting to think about how laptop designs have changed. He talks about how things have become slimmer and better looking, but at the expense of some of these ports and some of these connectivity options, and that we're calling somebody back. And apparently, they actually are...
Answer the phone, Alan.
Oh, is that Alan? Okay.
That was weird.
Are you there now, Alan? We got you back?
It just like redialed me or something.
Al, you gotta send video.
Yeah, here I am.
You gotta send the video.
Gotta
do it.
So the retrospective is actually really interesting. He says he likes the keyboards on the old laptops better. It had more travel. It's better feel for typing and actually working on something. He likes the connectivity options on this type of laptops. You really can't buy anymore, even kind of unless you're getting like a real business class laptop that's made for this type of connectivity. But then, you obviously have the pitfalls of portability, battery life, performance, those types of things. So obviously some things are vastly improving over time, but he thinks some things are not improving over time. And it's interesting to take a look at that. So if you go to the website, look up the Acer Extenza 5420 retrospective review. How far have we come? Basically in like a 5-year time span. It's actually really interesting. What else did we do? Oh, Steve posted a review of the Corsair H100 liquid cooler. This is something that came out a few months ago, but we hadn't actually gotten around to testing it and reviewing it yet. Really, really good performance. Self-contained water cooling kit from Corsair. Dual 120 millimeter radiator. So it takes a little bit more space inside your case than maybe you're used to, but it has noticeably better performance because of it. Try to see if I get to the performance page compared to even Corsair's own other options, their own self-contained water cooling options like the H80 and the H50. So we look at the performance testing. The H100 is a good degrees Celsius lower than the H70 or H50, and quite a bit better than the Coolit systems that we had tested before. Also, all the other systems were 120 millimeter. This one a 240 millimeter size radiator. So check out that review if you're looking for a new cooler. Also, quickly, I'll mention the Cooler Master Cosmos 2 case review. We already kind of mentioned the video portion of this review, I think in an episode a couple of weeks ago, basically right at the end of the year. If you want a $350 case that holds basically everything you could possibly imagine for your system, this is it. And it looks good doing it, but it's kind of expensive. I think we've already talked about that quite a bit, so I'll leave that alone.
$349.99.
$349.99. I mean, it's super sweet. Like, I would totally build a case out of this, or a system out of this, and I probably will since we have the case here already. But I don't know if I can spend $350 on a case. It has swinging doors. It's got USB 3 connectivity. It's got fan controller integration. It's got filters on all the intakes. They call it an XL ATX form factor. It holds tons of stuff. It's got hot swappable SATA bays in the front that are lockable. It's really, really an impressive design. There's tons of cool stuff to like it. There's room for a triple 120 radiator up top. There's room for a dual 120 radiator below. There are 11 hard drive trays in it, all capable of either 2.5 or 3.5 inch drives. And plus,
and not only that, it weighs a metric ton. The Cooler Master guy I was talking to at CES, he's a guy. He's probably about 5'9", decently built. He's like, yeah, this is a 2-man lift for me because I threw up my back in college.
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
not
you could
because
write it
of this
off
case.
as exercise equipment. It's about 50 pounds, empty, without
Empty.
casters.
47.5 pounds, I think, before you put a single component in it. It's kind of built like a tank. It feels that way, and I think we're going to build a system out of it some way, but I don't know what we're going to put in it. It has a 10+1 expansion slot configuration. That's what that photo that we just brought up was showing. The +1 being an expansion slot that's kind of off to the side that you can use either for like audio breakout cards, a USB 3.0 header, or even I think it'll support PCI Express riser cards as well if you happen to use one of those, which that's a pretty rare case, I think. Yeah, there we go. So you can see that in the video version there. It's just one of those things.
If you were Rodney, you would count the screws on the back.
There are 11 screws,
at
least on the expansion slots. So you can still do quad crossfire plus have the USB 3 dongle attached for people that really, really want to push the boundaries, that kind of crap. So check out that review. We just posted that up today, actually. And then finally, the XFX Radeon HD 7970. So we had already reviewed the 7970 previously, so we're not going to talk too much in depth about this because in reality, the XFX retail card is essentially a slightly overclocked version with a new cooler. It has a two-slot cooler, or I'm sorry, a two-fan cooler that they call Ghost Technology or something like that, which when I read that, I was like, oh, cool, it's going to be nice and quiet. It's actually a little bit louder than the reference cooler, and it runs at about the same temperature, so I'm not real impressed with the kind of the change in cooler. It does look nicer, but it's not improved in my opinion.
Effective?
Yeah, and it's not improved in my opinion in any real way. So, give and take on that. It's overclocked from 925 megahertz core clock to 1000 megahertz core clock, so you get, that similar percentage of performance difference. No real surprises there. Again, supports Crossfire. It has the same kind of display outputs, a single DVI, an HDMI, and two mini DisplayPort connections. The XFX does a good job with the retail packaging and that kind of stuff. Good documentation. They tell you exactly how to connect multiple monitors up to it. They have like a diagram on if you've got 2 monitors, you can connect this and this. If you have 3, and one of them is DisplayPort, here's how you do it. If you have 3 and one of them is not DisplayPort, here's how you do it. That's real helpful information, actually, for people that may be getting into these multi-display GPUs for the first time. We did the testing on our X79 platform, of course. What was more interesting, though, I think, than just the card itself is the fact that we now had 2 7970s we could do crossfire testing. The crossfire testing was not great in all cases. Some games it was great. Dirt 3 it performed really well, scaled great. Metro 2033 scaled great. Deus Ex scaled pretty well. Elder Scrolls didn't scale at all. Battlefield 3 was the oddest case. It scaled at 1920 by 1080 and 1680 by 1050 extremely well, but did not scale at all 2560 by 1600, which nobody has been able to answer why that is the case yet. Very kind of disappointing and let down. It only went from like 37 frames per second to 40 frames per second, whereas at 1080p we went from 60 to 118, so almost exactly double, right? I mean, that's great multi-GPU scaling. So I'm led to believe that this is really a driver bug, not an architectural hardware issue, which makes sense. So hopefully they'll be able to get that fixed, and we can move. Because if you go from 37 frames per second to like 75 frames per second at 2560 by 1600, that's awesome, and that's also great news for people that do multiple monitor gaming. You're going to see that same type of scaling at those super high resolutions as well. So hopefully we'll see that. I would tell you which color bars were which, but it wouldn't really matter in today's episode of the podcast. Look for the gray ones. The gray ones are the average. The other gray ones are the max. The other ones are the minimum. You guys got that? Cool. So long story short is the 7970 is still a great card. The XFX retail model, not necessarily better in a whole lot of ways, but it is a little bit overclocked. They're still expensive. They're still almost impossible to find. I think as of earlier this morning, Newegg only had a single one in stock, which is kind of disappointing now that we're past a week now of product availability, supposed product availability. And let's see. Newegg current lists 0 in stock.
What do you say? 28 nanometers? What? Suck it.
Yeah, 28 nanometers suck it, apparently.
Suck it.
If you can't buy it, what's it matter? Yeah, so Newegg has none of them in stock, ranging from $599 to $549. So there you go. Sorry if you wanted to buy one. But in my opinion, Crossfire still needs some work. Actually, I think Kyle over HardOCP posted an editorial this week as well, kind of saying the same type of thing, that in their case, Crossfire was always delayed in terms of good multi-GPU support compared to NVIDIA's SLI. That continues to be the case. They say they're pushing gaming forward and they want to be on the side of gamers, but they're not really proving it to us yet. So that's all we had for our articles. We've spent most of our time, obviously, over the last week in Las Vegas in various locales covering CES. So,
did I miss something? Did we talk about the ePad Transformer Prime?
Yes. Yeah.
Gosh.
That was the very first thing we talked about. We didn't talk a great deal about it. Is there something you wanted to note in particular?
Well, no. I mean, at CES, I finally got my hands on one. It was the 7-inch version in that meeting we were at?
At ASUS? So there was the Transformer Prime, which is a 10-inch. Are you talking about the new 1920 by 1200 version?
No, I don't know. The one they showed us at the NVIDIA booth in our meeting with them.
Okay, that was a Transformer Prime. That's a 10-inch. Yeah.
Yeah. I was, just absolutely shocked by how smooth running that was. And of course, I touched the bottom of the keyboard and said, hey, look how smooth and cool this is. And of course, you bitch slapped me and said, the CPU's not there, moron. It's behind the screen because it's actually a tablet. And I felt bad and I hung my head in shame. And I still haven't recovered from it. However,
I'm glad you brought it up and not me then.
Yeah, but I was really impressed. I mean, it ran all kinds of different programs. It had multiple things going on in the background. It looked nice. It was smooth. The tablet touch interface was great. I was shockingly impressed.
it's impressive to see how that stuff has improved. And that was the Transformer Prime runs Tegra 3. That version that you played with at our NVIDIA meeting was running Ice Cream Sandwich. And
Yeah.
I'm more excited about the one that ASUS showed at their booth that will be out in Q2, the TF700T, which is a great model number, easy to remember. I wouldn't have called it the Transformer Prime HD or anything like that. That would have been dumb. Because this screen, the new one, is a 1920 by 1200 screen in the same 10-inch form factor. So
Was it
basically
1080 or
doubling-
1200?
1200.
Oh, wow.
So it's 1920 by 1200.
Dense.
And
It's like a
it's
24-inch
impressive.
LCD packed into 10 inches.
What's that?
That's like a 24-inch LCD packed into 10 inches.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, it was cool. You could zoom in on the text on the screen as far as you could get, and it was super sharp. And that's only going to be $100 more than the other version of it. And you get a couple of other hardware increases, the camera and stuff like that. So that will be out in Q2. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm really
before-
excited. No, sorry. Can I add one more thing?
No. Go.
Damn.
No,
Never mind.
do it.
I'm so happy that there's somebody out there the size of Asus that is actively trying to compete with Apple and their iPad 2. And they
Yeah,
offer
and
some
they're
compelling,
probably. I think
they have some compelling features as compared to the iPad 2.
They do, and I think they're the best Android tablet on the market. It's arguable. It's not a slam dunk decision to say that, but I think they are the best Android tablet on the market. Both when they had the first Transformer out and now with the Transformer Prime, I think that is definitely the case. Okay, now let's take a quick break to thank, I don't know, whoever's going to be the sponsor of today's podcast. I don't even know. We'll see when Ken adds it in post. And we'll be right back to talk about some of the news that happened outside of CES, maybe an email, and then our exciting conclusion. All right. Thank you, sponsor person, for that advertisement. So what else happened this week in the last little bit since we left CES? IBM and AMD are supposedly inside the upcoming Xbox. Jeremy, explain a little bit about this story that I guess was sourced from our friend Charlie over at SemiAccurate.
It was indeed. I mean, this has been something we've been yakking about for a little bit. Is it going to be an x86 processor, or is it going to be an IBM Power PC processor? And, well, apparently he is 99.9% sure that we are looking at an IBM Power PC processor, mostly being fabbed by said manufacturer, but also by Global Foundries. And unfortunately, definitely not going to be a bulldozer. So, sorry AMD, you don't have it all, but you're going to have a graphics core Next chip in there. Something based off the HD 7000 family is going to be powering the graphics portion of this new Xbox 720, Xbox Next, Xbox 3D, whatever it is you would like to call it. But what is sort of interesting, and considering the problems that Global Foundries has been having putting out good silicon, it does make a little sense. They're ordering 10,000 wafers for their initial order just to supply the guys that are going to be programming. It's a huge amount of chips. I mean, you could almost be arguing they're looking at like a 20% yield or something like that. But as far as the developer kits go, it seems like they really want to be positive that they're going to have enough silicon to provide to these companies so that they can start programming for it, so that, hey, when this actually does come out, it's not going to be a flop of a launch because there's nothing that's going to be driving people to buy it. Like, why should I buy a new one if I got the old one and there's nothing to do it? Well, hey, you get this out to the developers, you're going to have DX11 support because of the Southern Islands architecture, and the Power PC, well, it's an interesting choice. It makes sense for a console in a lot of ways. I wouldn't bet on either Intel or AMD producing, low power chips built specifically for this purpose. I mean, I'm sure the guys doing the cell core, the core processor, no, the cell processors, are a little bit, are a little bit upset about this, but
I don't expect to see them in anything anymore.
Yeah, Cell is dead.
And so maybe is NVIDIA. I mean, that they are the only other company that could have provided the GPU for this because, for whatever reason, Microsoft was not going with an APU. Uh, so, boom, all of a sudden, NVIDIA's out of at least one of the next generation consoles, which means they're out of that console biz for how long has the Xbox been around now? 5, 6
Like
years?
7 years, 6
7
years.
years?
So it
Yeah.
was introduced a year after the Xbox 360.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're looking at a very long refresh rate before a new chunk of hardware is going to be going into a console. So, NVIDIA is out of the Xbox field for forever. And who knows what PlayStation is going to do or any of the others.
So
Yeah,
it
well-
looks like these. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay, it's it's not the death knell obviously for Nvidia. And in fact, if you kind of take a look at what they did with Sony with the PS3, I think they kind of took a look at the numbers and the lawyer fees and everything involved with that, and they said, you know what, this royalty thing probably is working out a little bit better than we expected, and it's a whole lot more trouble free. And because if you remember with the original Xbox, Nvidia and Microsoft were just at loggerheads. I mean, they were suing each other. It was a terrible, terrible thing because Nvidia did not want to license out their technology. They didn't want to receive royalties. What they wanted to do was produce all of the chips and then sell them to Microsoft. And Microsoft was saying, hey, we bought X amount of chips. How come the price isn't going down? Well, NVIDIA said, screw you, that's what we're selling you for. And Microsoft comes back and hammers them with lawsuits. And next thing you know, I mean, it's just, they lost out of the Xbox because they were hard to work with. And, kind of seeing the light, they worked with Sony when it became very apparent that the Cell architecture was not going to be able to do graphics like Sony was hoping. The original thought behind Cell was that you'd have this, pretty hefty processor, you've got all these special function units, and then you'd be able to do, not just all the processing power, but that's going to handle all the graphics as well. Well, internally, there was not enough bandwidth. I think that tests showed that you really couldn't effectively use more than 2 SPUs at one time with the architecture, and they were forced to go and get a another graphics chip. To do that, they went to NVIDIA. NVIDIA said, "Hey, we'll give you a 7900 GPU, sell it to you. You can license it, and we get royalties." And it's worked out a whole lot better for them because, I mean, they're still receiving these royalties. It's pretty trouble-free, and the people who are in charge of the manufacturing is Sony, so, NVIDIA doesn't have to worry about any of that garbage. And so AMD is sitting in the same place. And I think also why they aren't going to x86 is because IBM is a little bit more loose with the PowerPC license as compared to, like, Intel. Intel does not like to share these things. They did the same thing to Microsoft in that they sold them all the little Celeron chips that powered the original Xbox. So that's why, Microsoft kind of went with the PowerPC, is a little bit more lenient. They don't have to deal with Intel. So that's a positive. Sony had the Cell, which was also PowerPC. And again, we get back to that. IBM's a lot easier to deal with when it comes to the royalties. And did I really go off topic? I think I probably did, but
No.
boy,
No.
it's interesting stuff.
No, it is. I think one of the things more
I don't
people,
care. I only care about consoles until they launch.
We like to talk about
once
the
they've launched,
technology.
I don't care anymore. But the technology behind it is fun to watch.
I'm not console racist like Jeremy is, so I'll play games on both. But the interesting part here is it kind of puts it in line with the spring 2013 availability of product, which would put it right in line with the kind of holiday fall season of actual console availability, not this year, but the next year, which, again, kind of fell in line with the most recent rumors that we've been hearing while at CES and a little bit before that as well. So
Yeah, and
that was
all
kind
this.
of
This stuff is also being produced at 32 nanometer HK, metal HKMG, HK, high K metal gate. IBM and Global Foundries share that. I guess that Global Foundries and Fab 8 are actually producing these wafers, so that's a positive. Hopefully, AMD will be able to, also grab onto that production capability eventually. But yeah, it's still going to be next year before we see this. So I'm kind of wondering where we're going to be in terms of process technology. Will they go with a 28 nanometer product instead? Is it going to be, a Power PC CPU as well as the GPU on the same die? There's a lot of questions about that. And again, yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. And if you remember correctly, when the original Xbox and the Xbox 360 were coming out, developers were given about a 2-year span of time when they first got either emulators or these, first basic machines before we saw, the games come out. But because the next generation Xbox is going to be very similar in the programming, it's probably going to be a whole lot easier to develop for as compared to the jump from the original Xbox, which was x86 and NVIDIA graphics, to the Xbox 360, which had PowerPC and then the AMD or ATI Xenon graphics chip.
Indeed. There were a couple of other things. Let's see. At CES, we actually took a video of Lucid, who's a company we all know. They're known for their what is it? Hydra, which was a chip and software combination that promised to allow you to combine different GPUs together, NVIDIA and AMD GPUs together for multi-GPU gaming. And then more popularly, I think, for Lucid Virtue, which was the first software, I think it's still the only software really that lets you use both your integrated graphics on your Sandy Bridge processor and the discrete graphics from an AMD or an NVIDIA graphics card. So that's still being sold, distributed through motherboards, all that kind of stuff. That's still kind of an important feature. They were showing a couple of new technologies at CES. One of them, not really meant for consumers in its current form, even though I was trying to pitch them that they should offer it in a consumer form. That was their cloud gaming service, the technology that they're calling VGware for now. This is basically the same idea that we have thought of in other gaming services like OnLive, where games are rendered and computed entirely on a remote server. And then on your local kind of dumb client machine, all you have to do is run basically a video player, and you interact with your mouse and keyboard, and you play games as if you were rendering them locally. Now, there are issues with that. You've got latency issues, and you've got potential complications with software issues and that kind of stuff. But Lucid has a solid background in what they call GPU virtualization, being able to virtualize GPU resources so that they can put whatever components of what game or application on any GPU that's available in the system. And so they're utilizing that capability, that kind of know-how, to virtualize rendering over cloud systems. So here you can see in the video that we're looking at a server running actually a GTX 480 graphics card, and I think it's a Sandy Bridge processor. I can't remember exactly. And on that display you're actually seeing what the server is. Now, in the server world, you obviously wouldn't necessarily be seeing the game that is being rendered and played, but this is just for demonstration purposes. They were showing that there. And they're just using a standard kind of wireless router to connect to a couple of thin client notebooks that only have integrated graphics in them. Sometimes I think that's actually a Centrino laptop. That gives you an idea of how old it is. And it's playing, I think it's playing Modern Warfare 2. And you can see he's moving the mouse and shooting the gun on the game on the local client. And you can see it's being mirrored back on the server as well. And they actually show it running the same game twice on two different laptops. They show two different games running on two different laptops, but all being rendered on the one server. So the technology is, they're currently aiming it for more service providers, somebody that wants to compete against OnLive, maybe individual game developers or publishers that want to offer this type of service on their own as well. They're saying, look, it's real simple. You just add more GPUs into each system, and we know how to take advantage of that power. You don't have to do anything unique on it. And in fact, you can, basically just install the games on a server, and now people can rent them. So maybe this will enable some other OnLive competitors that are smaller companies. Maybe they charge lower monthly fees, or they charge in a different manner that OnLive does. Could be interesting. My proposal to them was what I would like to see is a kind of home version of this, where you as a user can build one SLI system or one Crossfire system that has a lot of gaming horsepower and make it a server, just like they're showing there. Install your games to it, and then you have the capability to run those games on your laptop, on your mom's PC, on your tablet, anything that can run this applet, this kind of rendering and gaming configurator or configuration tool. So if you have 4 friends come over, they can all bring modest laptops, or you can buy a couple of a handful of $200 thin client PCs, and you'd be able to do LAN party gaming on without having to bring huge bulky machines with you everywhere you wanted to go. I think that's actually a really, really great idea. They said they didn't have plans for that in terms of making a kind of consumer product, but I think that's a great idea for people that like to have friends come over and play games. Maybe the friends don't want to have to carry their PC. Maybe they don't want to have to buy a heavy PC. We talk about now, why do you need dual 7970s if you're playing on a 1080p monitor? Well, now all of a sudden we talk about Eyefinity running over 3 displays. What if you just have 3 people playing the same game, and you want to be able to do stuff that way, right? So now you're utilizing that GPU horsepower in a unique and I think very interesting and useful way. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? If that's a good idea, bad idea, not feasible?
I'm guessing they weren't set up next to the OnLive booth.
No. They were.
I don't think they'd get along very well.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
but they should have.
But, I mean, what do you think? I mean, are there legal issues involved in this? Obviously, you got to run multiple copies of the same game. They showed the capability to do that. I don't know if that's necessarily, going to jive well. If they'd have to have something like Steam, where each person, has their own copy. But
but then again, that's my question: is can you actually log in, or be running a separate copy of the same game, but yet have those processes running multiple times on the source machine? Because if everyone's sort of got this thin client and they've installed Steam on it, which again is going to be questionable how you're going to be able to do that on something extremely light.
Well, you wouldn't have to install Steam on it.
So you've got 3 different Steam or 4 different Steam logins running on the host computer that's running this. Like,
essentially,
I love the idea. I think the implementation might be a little bit difficult because a lot of PC games right now, I wouldn't say that they're unused to this sort of idea. I'd say that they're actually actively against it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it may be something that is much more complicated than I'm making it out to be, but it would be the ideal situation, I think, for a lot of people. It basically means, because we have this issue with nobody wants to do this cloud gaming thing, or I don't think many people want to do this cloud gaming thing because of that idea of latency and the lag involved in even a 50 millisecond round trip.
T-Stuff called it, though. Set up
that?
virtual machines. T-Stuff in the chat answered my question. You set up virtual machines on the host machine. That way you can do it.
That would require more OS implementation than I think Lucid wants to do, maybe. I don't know. But if we have our own local clouds for the same service, then you get rid of that latency issue, right? You're talking about on your local network, you're talking less than a millisecond of latency involved in that. So, I don't know. Alan, is our networking guru, any thoughts?
Well, just simply having it all in your house kills a lot of that latency, right? So you're dropping down to maybe 5 or 10 milliseconds at the most. Well, actually, really at the most. Depends on the technology, but if it's going to buffer one whole frame, then you're going to have, just 1 frame worth of latency, which is still, that's tolerable because a lot of displays do that just by themselves. Like displays that don't, we've talked about this. It was a long time ago since we've talked about this, but just where you have your typical display that has a bunch of different inputs, those are the ones that tend to have more input lag, like 1 or 2 frames worth, because they do more processing on the video.
Right.
The shameful thing is that a lot of them will do that even when they're running at their native res with, DVI, dual link DVI or whatnot straight in.
Sure.
They'll still do it for some reason. But that's usually just because there's a circuit in there somewhere that wants a nifty screen display. So on-screen displays in general just tend to, be bad news when it comes to low latency gaming kind of stuff. But yeah, this is just have all the video stuff right there in your house. That's going to kill a lot of that latency. You're not going over the internet. Yeah,
unless you're playing StarCraft too.
True. It's
So
it's hard to kill it's hard to kill, or not kill, but it's hard to run multiple games, like to virtualize that without. They would have to do extra steps to handle like having the
Yes.
game installed.
I mean, they
within the
did
virtual
show
machine.
me running 2 copies of Modern Warfare 2, I believe it was, at the same time, but I don't know if they
Okay.
had to do some. Call of Duty 4, even older game.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. They didn't say what version they were using. They didn't see if they had to have like CD keys and all that other kind of stuff. So I know there's other issues that have to get there, but the idea behind it sounds awesome. Josh, you were going to say something?
How do you think this contrasts to that technology demo that NVIDIA showed at their program, where they had their high powered desktop machine rendering everything and then transferring it to the tablet they had or the Asus Transformer, and it looked great and it played great.
That was similar in a lot of ways, but that's a one-to-one thing. They weren't saying that they could virtualize for multiple users on the same machine. It was basically the way for allow you to. It's actually kind of like a middle ground between what Lucid wants to do and what I want to do. That allows you to play. They were playing Skyrim on the Transformer Prime tablet, right? With all game processing being done on the high-end PC, transferring it over the local network to the tablet. Very similar. What I want is some kind of combination of this so that there's a reason to have dual 580s, to have dual 7970s, because now I can share that gaming power between all of my friends. We can play together, and we don't all necessarily have to have $2,000 gaming rigs for it to happen. That was impressive as well, the NVIDIA demonstration. I hope that is an application that comes out not just for tablets. To me, the idea of playing Skyrim or something like that on a 10-inch screen kind of defeats the purpose. But if you had a 15-inch laptop, maybe that's a little bit better. Or maybe you can connect your tablet or your laptop up to a TV and play on it that way and that type of thing. So I'm definitely for this idea of kind of being able to use that computing power at any place you want without actually having to have a different machine in each room, right? So I want to play Skyrim upstairs in my office and downstairs in the living room. Right now I have an Alienware M17X down in the living room, and I have my high-end PC upstairs in the bedroom. And it'd be nice not to have both high-end machines to do it. So the other interesting thing they showed
Can I grab one other thing since we've got some time?
Absolutely. Oh, go for it.
Going on a complete tangent, don't you find it interesting that for the past 10, 12 years, we've been talking about how, Linux is going to take over the desktop, how, we're going to finally have applications and everything that we need to run. And up until 2 years ago, that was always the promise that was on the horizon. And don't you find it interesting that once Google took that, made Android out of it, ported it to cell phones so they can compete against, the other makers can compete against the iPhone, and now we finally got products going into the desktop space that are essentially Linux-based.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, I guess. I never really thought about it. It's
Linux has been
It took
hurt
a
by a lot of
unified
infighting.
interface and unified body behind it is what it took.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say that Linux has been hurt a lot by infighting. So, I mean, there is the issue of, which flavor are you going to do? So nothing was ever really taking a... Sorry, hat's falling off again.
Yeah, don't do
Nothing
that.
was ever taking a big lead. Whereas Google throws their weight behind a brand new flavor, all of a sudden no one's got any baggage attached to it. And people are sort of introduced to it for the first time and going, oh, hey, this is great. They're not playing with the Tinkertoy version of Linux where, hey, you can build anything out of this. It's just not put together yet. So they've got something that just does it. So all of a sudden, yeah, you're going to get some penetration of people. Well, why can't my Windows machine do that? So, hey, maybe it will lead to a little bit bigger market share than we've been seeing for quite a while. And maybe I'll have to learn a bit more about it.
All right.
Well, get a cell phone first, Jeremy.
I don't wanna.
Both of you.
I've got
Both of you.
Josh. I've got an asterisk server. I don't have a choice.
Ah,
All right, let's see. Other rumors. It's not all bad news for NVIDIA. There might be some potentially good news. NVIDIA could launch GF... Wait, this can't be right. GF104 Kepler. That's GF104 is already a GPU. Am I missing something? Maybe they're just renaming their code naming schedule. So NVIDIA may launch Kepler GPUs ahead of schedule. Kepler being the next generation after Fermi. This is kind of their answer to the Southern Islands architecture. We expect to see some impressive features out of this. Hopefully, we'll see more than 2 display outputs. Finally, a feature that will match what AMD has done for quite a few generations of parts. According to this report by Maximum PC, they may be leaning towards moving that release date up from kind of summer to spring, and I think it would be obvious to say that this is partially, if nothing else, due to the release of the AMD 7900 cards, the 7970 so far. That even though you can't really buy them, they are out there now. They are in people's minds now. They are in gamer psyches, right? They're talking about, I'm not going to buy a GTX 580 when I can get a 7970. And then a lot of people now are going to be thinking about, well, maybe I need to wait for what NVIDIA's responses are. The sooner they can get their answer out, the sooner the more purchases they'll be able to make.
Well, but the problem is that we know they're going to be leading with their mid-range chips.
Well, according to this report, NVIDIA's new high-end GTX 680 graphics cards may be released as soon as February 2012.
It's the GK107. I don't know. I mean, I hope it's true. And it wouldn't be the first time that these guys at was it Hardware Hell that or Chip Hell that reported it. But I don't know if we've just been hearing that NVIDIA for these new chips are going to be leading with the mobiles and with mid-range desktops, and they're hoping they're going to be on schedule. So to suddenly say, hey, no, it's going to be the high ends. I mean, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see the price of the 580 come down, so the price of the 7970 comes down, and the 7950 goes down too. But I'm leery about this.
Don't underestimate the power of pride, right? So NVIDIA as a company has a lot of that, and they don't like being beat to the punch. Now they're smart.
But they've never released unready silicon
take the
before.
money over the pride, I think. But if they believe they can have both, they will try it.
Huh?
I don't know. So they're talking about the GTX 680 moving the release to like March timeframe, March-April timeframe. Or no,
is it going to be the 680 or the 780? I've heard both.
Yeah, I have no idea. We've seen slides that say 780. Now we're seeing stuff that says 680 as well. I don't know. You don't know.
They're trying to catch the leaks.
Indeed, yes. Now they know that's not us because we think it might be 680.
We have no freaking clue.
No idea. What else happened? There's a little bit else that, Alan, you posted up about CES since we got back. More of a storage kind of checkup. In particular, it turns out you saw a Cherryville SSD just kind of sitting out somewhere.
Is he even still there anymore?
Alan made
Power and fall down, go boom.
Oh man, look at him!
Oh,
look at him.
Alan!
Right as he was swinging.
Is Alan Malventano. I am reporting from.
All right. Well, let's we'll come back to that in a second. Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about AMD's ripoff product called Lightning Bolt?
Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt.
Lightning Bolt.
Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt. Freeze. If you haven't done LARP in your life, then that means you've probably dated some women or men.
Guilty.
Yeah. Anyway, AMD is releasing a product, or rather a specification, that's an inexpensive version of Intel's Thunderbolt, except it doesn't quite do as many things. It's not as general as Thunderbolt. But Lightning Bolt does a few things very interestingly. I think it's a USB 3.0 display port and kind of a higher speed transfer protocol that's very inexpensive as compared to the Intel's Thunderbolt. They want to put these on laptops so you can easily use these in more docking type applications. So you plug this in the Lightning Bolt port and you've got full resolution monitor coming out of it, other kind of storage and I/O applications that will use it. It's not as general as Thunderbolt, but at the same time, it's a whole lot cheaper. It's a couple of bucks for this little chip that is essentially a condenser of DisplayPort and all of these connection technologies. And so this is something they're hoping to do in the next year. Nobody's really behind it yet. We'll have to see. But another thing they're also doing is apparently they're going to have discrete graphics that can run off of this as well. So we'll see if they can actually get her done. I don't know what else you've heard or read about it, Jeremy or Ryan, but that's kind of where I was sitting and watching it from.
Well, the
Yeah,
one that
I
got
don't-
me, I was
Go
going
ahead,
to say
Jeremy.
it's a
I
little
don't know
sad that
much
it has electrical pinouts which are different from DisplayPort, so you won't end up with a dual purpose port. But apart from that, it's nice that, hey, they're going with something that is already accounted for in a lot of laptop designs. Right?
Believe that this is even possible for it to catch on in any kind of meaningful way. That AMD is a company that has less than 20% market share, somehow going to push a completely new connection type. When even Intel has trouble pushing some on their own, Thunderbolt being one, right? It's taken a long time to catch on.
Yeah, maybe it'll come with their new form factor that they're going to be pushing soon.
Hey, two words for you. Ultrabook. Ultrabook.
No, we
No,
can't use
ultra
that.
thin.
That's an Intel copyrighted
Ultra
term.
thin.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
but
they're-
who cares? It's. I mean, they're copying Apple, and AMD is going to be having their own little Ultrabook, but it's not branded an Ultrabook.
Right, because they can't
Do you
brand
not
it an
think that like companies like Asus will say, "Hey, we can make a phone form factor for this 17-watt Intel part. Why can't we do the same for this old 17-watt Trinity/Pile Driver based AMD part and get a little bit better graphics performance out of it?"
Mhm. I mean, so that's the other thing that AMD showed at CES, right? Is they're saying, hey, look, we're not going to tell our partner. They do it in a very good way, because they say we're going to provide the hardware to our partners, ASUS and Acer and all these notebook guys, that will allow them to make products that our customers want. But we're not going to dictate to them how they have to implement this hardware in order for it to be branded in some specific way, which Intel has done with the Ultrabook. There is a very rigid set of guidelines that a machine has to meet to be called an Ultrabook in order to use that branding, in order to use that Intel funding and all that other kind of stuff, right? There's limitations on how thick it can be. There's limitations on what the resolution can be. There's limitations on what
Boot
specific
time.
processors and boot times. Yeah, I mean, there are very specific things, and in a lot of ways that's good. It provides stability in the market. If you go buy something that's branded an Ultrabook, it will have those specs. But on the other hand, it may make these companies like ASUS less likely to try to innovate and try their own things if they know they won't get the approval nod from Intel, or they won't get maybe marketing dollars from Intel that they would get otherwise. If they just, maybe they could have made a notebook that was 2 millimeters thicker and had 3 USB 3.0 ports instead of 1. Maybe they could have done that. But they can't, and they choose not to because, well, we can't call it an Ultrabook that way, and we want to do it the other way. So that's kind of the angle AMD is taking with this is we'll release the 17-watt Trinity part, which is ultra-low voltage part, that basically gives you the same CPU and GPU performance of Llano that we have today. At least that's their claim. And it will sell in machines that's starting at $500 that will be in the ultra-thin category, which we talked about on the podcast during CES. All an Ultrabook is an ultra-thin notebook. It's just a new moniker. It's a new branding term. And it's a way for Intel to try to consolidate these types of designs and to put a good kind of marketing spin on things that maybe have kind of gotten a little older, a little stale in the market.
I mean, it's totally not an iBook. Totally not. Nope, not at all.
Nope. No. We don't. They don't copy Apple. Nobody does that.
Hey, did you notice how smoothly we went from Lightning Bolt to Ultrabooks with AMD?
Yeah. And now I had to point it out.
Yeah, well, it's like I took a laxative for my brain.
Do we have, on that note, do we have Alan back?
That's a new beer.
We do have Alan back.
Oh,
Yes,
it's
we
Aaron.
do. Until the
Hey, Alan,
internet
do you want to
decides
talk to
go
us
away
about
again.
storage stuff?
Yeah. Okay, so Cherryville.
This is kind of
you
like
said-
a cleanup from CES.
Yeah, just like some extra catching up. I was going through pictures, just aftermath kind of thing, and I usually run around and
Afterbirth?
take all kinds of random pictures and stuff. And I thought there was a 320 series solid state drive connected to one of the systems on display. No, it was actually a 520. So of all the times to not have had my screwdriver with me, because I would have popped the lid off right there, as people know I've done in the past at past
Seen it.
CESs. Yes, we've done that. So that's really all we could say about that for now, because the contents of that drive are currently under NDA.
Yes, so now we
It's
actually
cool.
have one in our hands. We're not allowed to really talk about it anymore, but we'll be able to talk about it soon.
Yes, I
there
can
you
say it's impressive. The performance is impressive. And I also
And should
caught
the subtitle for this be, if you can't beat them, join them?
I'm not gonna. say
We're not going to go
anything
there.
either
Okay.
way. So the other thing I saw was a 20 nanometer IMFT flash die, the actual die. Micron had it on one of their displays. So I got a picture of that and threw that up there. And then just some other miscellaneous stuff. SanDisk had some interesting stuff up at their booth. I think that was, what was it, Pepcom, where we saw them, I think.
Mhm.
They had a eMMC NAND flash part. So this is like a BGA surface mount part. It's smaller than a penny. So it's a rectangle, but it fits within a penny, right?
Okay.
Including in thickness. So it's thinner than a penny. It's more like a dime thickness. But the thing was 64 gigabytes in that size.
64
So-
gigabits or gigabytes?
No, capital B, gigabytes.
Capital B.
Wow.
Storage,
That's a
not
lot.
transfer.
That's a
So
lot
this
of
is not
GBs,
something
guys.
that's meant for
I want
an
the bigger
embedded-
GBs.
Yeah, exactly. It's meant for really small mobile kind of application. This thing's going to be soldered, to a PCB at the factory. It's not going to be meant to be swapped out or anything like that. But just the fact that they're able to cram that much into that small package is pretty good. Pretty good sign for just any your general any kind of.
How many
mobile
of these did you
devices.
put in your pocket?
Yeah, they had that one, and the guy was there was a person just designated to keep his eyeballs on it, the entire time, so it wasn't going anywhere. It was sort of like that Tegra 2 cell phone you looked at last year.
Oh, yeah. There's always somebody
Brian
with
was not letting that out of his sight.
Yeah.
And this year it was the Prime.
Yeah,
So what else?
Yeah, that's
Anything
true.
else stand out to you in the world of storage that we didn't already cover at CES?
not that we didn't already cover, but in case there are some people that don't listen to the daily ones, do you think there even is such an animal? I don't know. There was a bunch
They're
of cool
all
stuff.
sent to the
There was,
RSS feed, so they better listen to damn well all of them.
Yeah, they should listen to all of them. But there was a bunch of good stuff in there for storage stuff, like solid state drives with nothing but RAM on them, and pretty cool
Yes.
stuff.
We talked about
Crazy.
Thunderbolt external SSDs with 750 megabytes per second read speeds. There was a lot of cool stuff. So yeah, if you do happen to just watch this live and you didn't follow the RSS, go to pcper.com/podcast. You will see episodes 4, 3, 2, and 1 because they're listed in reverse order of the CES podcast. You should listen to them in chronological order, though, to maybe see what you might have missed, because there's lots of stuff that we talked about. We're not going to cover all the CES stuff here. We just don't have time to do that. We did 4 individual 45-minute episodes, one each night while we were at CES. So those are definitely worth watching. All of you in the chat room, I'm talking to you. pcper.com/podcast. Go there.
Hey, Alan,
Yes, sir.
have you noticed that right now we seem to be kind of in another area that is not kind of defined by process technology, and that SSDs are now, it seems like they've taken another 20% hit in price just over the past 3 months. I mean, we're seeing deals on pretty good-sized SSDs that we're getting closer and closer to that dollar a gig on fast stuff.
Yeah. And I don't even think it's going to take that anymore for it to really just start seeing crazy uptake. Something I heard today, in fact, supposedly every single seat at Intel, like their whole IT, infrastructure, everybody that works that has a PC, any kind of thing, has an SSD in it. Like they've converted
Nice.
everybody over.
I don't know if
And
you know
then,
this, but Intel makes a lot of money.
$1 or
But it's not-
$2.
But it's not because of that. It's because it's getting to the point now where your productivity is just worth it. Between the productivity, the cost of ownership, you wrap all that up, and it just makes sense at this point because it's a single best upgrade to a PC. It's as simple as that. Compared to a spinning disk, it just
Well, I remember last year about this
having
time.
just
I bought
upgraded
some-
last week. I just switched to an Agility 3 this last weekend.
Ken just bought bought an
It's-
OCZ Agility 3, 100. Did you buy the 120 gig, Ken?
No,
It-
I bought the
it's
2.
one-
Well,
Well,
I
Ken
got the
bought the
240.
120 gig model. It's $129.99 after rebate. You can get the 240 gig model for $269.99 after rebate, and that's a SandForce 2200 controller, right, Al?
yep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 1 year ago I bought a guy some SSDs. They're all SandForce 2. They're 90 gigs. They were low price at $210. Compare that to the SandForce 3, the new who's that other guy? It starts with an I.
Huh?
OCZ bottom.
Indie Link.
Indie Links.
Oh, Indie
Yeah,
Links.
I mean,
I was going to
The
say
new
Intel.
controller.
it's
You're talking about the
just
new
moving
controller that's in the
insane.
Octane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you compare this also to the spinning disc platter guys, they had the flooding in Thailand. All their drives just doubled or tripled in price. Now people finally see, hey, I can get a whole lot more speed, a lot more responsiveness. It's going to be a lot snappier, and it's sure I'm taking a hit on cost per terabyte and gigabyte. But boy, I mean, it's just, if you can get 120 gig Agility 3 for $129, that's nothing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You
Even
get
for
an SSD.
what?
Sorry, that was it. That was my
Actually,
open launch.
so
I'm not buying you guys
Jeremy,
anything.
what's your take now? You have an Agility
Oh,
3.
Hey, I'm loving it. And the thing is, it's only running at half speed. I've got an old P6 or an old P6T. It's still running on SATA 3.
That's another funny thing because there's a lot of people that they're making their next upgrade the SSD. The current ones that are cheapest cost per gig right now, just due to volume, I guess, is the 6 gigabyte ones. So there's like a chunk of people out there that have an older motherboard, right? My main rig does not have 6
it's going to
gigabytes
last me through my
today.
next upgrade. And my next
Yeah.
upgrade, it's going to be even faster. But as it is
Exactly.
right now, it is a black and white difference. Just not just loading a game or anything, but it's been a long time since Excel has launched instantaneously for me. It's impressive. And I sit there picking and choosing, and then I realize, wait, I upgraded from 128 gigabit Velociraptor. So I don't even feel cramped by 240 gigabits, or 200 after you do everything. And it was absolutely worth every cent.
You know what else is going to make a big push for adoption or push towards solid state drives in general? I think it's part of the Ultrabook spec, right, Ryan?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
just-
can't
it's like-
fit a spinning book in an Ultrabook.
No.
I mean, a spinning.
A spinning book.
A spinning
Yes,
drive.
book, spin.
Ultra disc.
Ah.
But yeah,
Interesting.
just because of that alone, you're going to have a lot of people that just don't have a choice, right? So if they went that route, they get a solid state drive. They might not get a crazy high performance one. Might be, there are differences. There are grades to these things. So there's still going to be other stuff to look at as far as like which ones are faster than others. But overall, they all just completely cream a hard drive. So
Yep.
and you're going to get a lot more people seeing that. People are going to look at other people's Ultrabooks, notebooks, whatever they happen to have that has a SSD in it and go, wow, that thing's really fast. What makes it so fast? Yeah. It's not the CPU.
Magic Intel dust.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
one last piece of news to get to. This one actually just went up today. Alienware X51 Desktop, a console-sized PC starting at $700. This one was kind of interesting. Alienware has long been known to have interesting case designs. This post is written up by Scott, and by being pretty expensive. So the X51 product line it looks like an Xbox 360. It kind of looks like an Xbox 360. They don't give you anything real kind of definitive to give you an idea of what the actual size is. You can kind of tell by looking at the USB ports. It's probably going to be bigger than an Xbox 360, but it looks very similar. It's stylized. It can stand up. It can lay down on its side both ways. And what you're looking at is actually a mini ITX Sandy Bridge based computer that actually takes discrete graphics cards as well. So it's interesting. So the top model has a Core i7 2600K. It has a graphics card that doesn't really exist anywhere except for Alienware, I think. The GTX 555. This is not a mobile part. It is a discrete single slot graphics card. It'll take a traditional. I think it takes a 2.5-inch hard drive, maybe. And it takes standard DDR3 memory as well. So this is an upgradable system to some degree, meaning you'll be able to swap out the processor, you'll be able to swap out the graphics card, but you do have to stay kind of within the highest end power supply you can get on the unit is 330 watts. So that's your power supply and your graphics card and all that kind of stuff inside the system. So it's not like you'll be able to drop in a 580 or something like that if they come out with a single slot version of that. It's just not going to power it, and the cooling probably isn't built for that either. But it's really, I think it's a really good looking case actually, and you probably get some pretty good performance out of it. It's still priced higher than the components inside it are worth. You know, it's hard to get completely past that part of the equation, but you can change the colors of the LEDs on the side in software.
Ooh.
Worth it. Also, because it does use it uses a mini ITX, so it is a standard form factor motherboard. Again, in theory, you should be able to, if you buy this system, you can keep this case. Maybe when Ivy Bridge comes out, you can replace it with an Ivy Bridge capable mini ITX motherboard, whatever kind of new discrete single slot graphics card that's also low power, maybe from Kepler or Southern Islands lineage of GPUs. Right, there's upgradability here. In theory, I'm not going to guarantee it or anything, but because it does use these kind of standard form factors, it might be possible to do that. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on this other than the fact that somebody built a computer that looks like a console? Gotta be right up Jeremy's alley.
Oh yeah, that was sort of why I didn't bother looking in. I just sort of said, "Oh, well, those specs are decent. Oh, starts at $700. Yeah, okay, that's worth posting." Yeah, well, guess what? The basic specs that they were posting were more like $1,200. I think your Xbox doesn't run quite that much, does it?
No, and because it's a GPU that doesn't really exist in any other form, the GTX 555.
Yeah.
We don't have any benchmarks for it. We know it's a 2600. It's not a 2600K. It's a 2600. So it's the same speed, but it's not an unlocked processor. We know what that performs like. It's going to perform great. It's going to perform as good as a Sandy Bridge E 3820 in a lot of cases, and it's a great performing processor. It comes with up to 8 gigs of memory. That's not the issue. The issue will be how much discrete gaming power do you actually get in the 555. Ken, do you remember how many shaders it was? Was it 280? I think it was something like 280 stream processor. Yeah, so that's less than half. It's about half of the GTX 580. To give you kind of an idea of where you are in terms of actual processing and gaming horsepower. Should still be good for 1080p gaming. You know, I think that the quote they put on the Alienware website is it can play Battlefield 3 at 1080p at more than 50 frames per second. Now, they don't give you any details about indoor-outdoor, maps, quality settings, blah, 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 but it gives you an idea that you will be able to play high-end games on this machine if you're looking for something that looks cool, takes up a certain amount of space, might be a little overpriced, but still, you know, a unique take on the gaming PC other than having, like if you look at the difference between this and the Cosmos 2 that we talked about earlier in the show, you could probably put 6 of these inside the Cosmos 2 frame. right? So
Do you remember how large the original Xbox was, plus the size of those controllers? It's
yeah,
bad.
yeah. So
Small
it's neat to
children
see.
can use them.
I'm also a fan of the Alienware kind of form factor of laptops, and it looks very similar to that. If you're not a fan of that, you probably won't be a fan of this. But I think anything that makes things look unique and different, whether it goes from the M17X, which is a huge machine that is lots of lights on it and is cool looking, heavy but lots of gaming power, versus the Ultrabooks we've been talking about over the last week since CES. There is a machine for everybody. We did have one email, podcast@pcper.com is our email address. We pretty much already addressed this email, but I wanted to go ahead and mention Tom here asking about 7970 Crossfire. He is talking about, he has two 5870s currently with a Core i7-930 overclocked, and he wants to know, let's see, he's had a habit of buying first buying the latest, best GPUs in Crossfire and putting them in the existing rig and running that for about 12 months or so, and then getting all of the remaining components and creating the entirely new rig. So he wants to know, he's competing against Reflex. So the quickest hardware I can get. I should add that I've got Eyefinity 1080p, 3 screens at 5760 by 1080. Are the 7970 GPUs in Crossfire going to help me competitively, and how much? Well, if you're
He
like
needs
me
the hacks.
gaming, it's not going to help me at all to have faster graphics cards because I'm still awful at most of these games. But as we talked about earlier, have not been impressed with how Crossfire scales in the 7970s as of today. There are new drivers coming out all the time. There are new fixes coming out all the time. But at this point, you probably can't buy a single 7970, so you might as well just wait a little bit and see what happens with drivers, see what happens with prices on this card. And if the rumors of NVIDIA's Kepler coming out in the end of February, this will hopefully put pressure on AMD to lower their prices, to improve availability if they can, and if nothing else, maybe drop the prices of 580s, maybe drop the prices of 6970s, things like that. So there's a lot of things that can happen in the next month and a half in terms of graphics cards. So I'm not going to tell you not to invest in a 7970 if you find one at what you think is a reasonable price. But I would say if you're going to spend the money on two of them, if you're going to be spending $1,100 to $1,200 on graphics cards, I think you want to make sure you're not going to regret the decision or think you got screwed out of some hardware, potential hardware there. So again, send us your emails, podcast@pcper.com, 1-888-38-PCPer, toll-free telephone number. If you call us, ask us your questions. We love it, but keep it 30 seconds or less. Don't ramble. Also, don't mention your phone number in the message because we're not going to edit
please
it out.
do.
Everybody will call you. That's just how
I
it
might
works.
call him.
I will specifically give Josh your number after he has been drinking,
Enjoy.
which is my experience, like the Gremlins, which is all of the time, right? So they don't feed the Gremlins after midnight. Don't give Josh phone number after beer.
No.
Hardware software picks of the week. My pick is the device that allowed us to create those wonderful podcast moments during CES 2012. That's right, and also allowed the cleaning lady to record their own podcast. And had we known that the cleaning lady was going to be so interested in this, yes, the Hypnotoad. So this is a Behringer Xenix 802 mixer. This is a, how many channels? 6-channel mixer. Actually, it's a 4-channel, but it could do 2 channels on the third and fourth inputs. Actually, $50.
Hello?
This is a $50.
I'm cleaning the room.
A $50 mixer that will allow you to make your own Cleaning Lady podcast or technology podcast, whichever it is. You can double up. That's the great thing about this. We got this at Guitar Center just across the street. I think it might have been $60, but on Amazon it was listed at $49.99. It does do phantom power. It's got all kinds of knobs and stuff to turn if you like to do that. If you want to do your own kind of little podcast, you can do this. We have like an 18 channel mixer or something here. 16, totally unnecessary for our purposes, but we love having the flexibility it offers. It's much more expensive than this. $50, you can pick this up. get a couple of XLR mics for $20 a piece, and you will have great sounding audio quality and probably do better at podcasting than us. So that's it. Jeremy, what do you and your hat and tie have to say?
Well, I'm trying not to cry over your choice of Behringer, but to each his own, I guess.
I'm not an audiophile. I don't know what I did wrong.
Yeah, well, Burke will explain it probably much more politely than I will. I am so happy that EVGA has finally come through. For the Insane system, I've been recommending their SR2 for a very long time. It's also a 1366 system. It's getting a little old in the teeth, as are the Xeons that go in it. Well, at CES, you guys showed pictures of the SRS or the SRX, which will be their new Socket 2011 dual processor motherboard, which, as soon as we can find it for sale, is going to be on the hardware leaderboard. It's a little odd. You've got 8 DIMM slots around one CPU, 4 around another, and I haven't been able to find out if there is actually going to be latency problems between the two CPUs if you overload one with RAM. On the other hand, it's going to have so many PCI Express lanes. You are just going to laugh. And, well, you ain't going to be putting a Sandy Bridge E in it. Sorry, they were not designed as dual processors, but there are some really nice Xeon chips that are probably going to be powering the next incarnation of the Insane build at the hardware leaderboard at PC Perspective.
Great. I always was looking for ways to spend more money. I appreciate that selection, Jeremy. Josh, is yours item cheaper?
But who? How about I shoot words, mouth?
Go ahead.
You.
Use the big
I
words.
can. I can speak now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Speak, Josh.
I've been looking at this one, and there was a lot of thought about it when they're released. But the AMD FX 6100 has gotten to the point where it's cheap enough to be interesting for the guy who wants to overclock, kind of tweak things out, test it out. It's the 6-core or 3-module product. It's got a lower TDP. Cooling is not as extreme. Power draw, again, since one module is disabled, it's not as bad. It's got the full 8 megs of L3 cache. It's turning into an interesting budget enthusiast part. I believe it's like $149 now, and oftentimes you can get it with another like $20 gift certificate thrown in. So essentially, the price turns into $129, but of course you got to use that gift certificate and buy something else. But anyway, going on from that, it probably overclocks well. I'm going to try to grab a hold of one and do some testing on it. But for now, if you really want to go into the AM3 Plus, if you want to do it cheaply and relatively secure in having a decent part and, not getting taken to the cleaners with the 8150, which doesn't perform all that well, this one is it's kind of an interesting CPU. Get a hold of it, overclock it. It'll probably run great, and if you had bought an AM3 Plus motherboard and wanted to stock it with something, well, it's a pretty good choice as compared to one of the older Phenom 2 X4s. So give that a go if you're the least bit interested. I believe it goes up to 3.6 gigahertz turbo with 6 cores and 3.9 gigahertz turbo with 3 cores. And I'm sure it'll overclock up to 4.4, 4.5 gigahertz with very few problems. And above that, if you've got good cooling. So, check it out.
Alrighty, Alan, what are you selecting? It's very important.
Okay, so I got a couple of picks. I have one pick, which is actually a pretty cool thing. Mophie makes a Juice Pack Power Station deal, which is pretty cool because it's like 4 amp hour battery pack that's got a little USB port on it. So that'll charge like 3.5 or 4 cell phones from dead to full. That's pretty darn spiffy. You just carry that with you. Don't really need to.
Cool.
You go travel for like a week, not bring your cell phone charger. Kind of a cool idea. So the anti-pick is very fitting for the fact that we're transmitting in black and white and all the other stuff that's going on the internet. And of course, Burke can't open the page because of the blackout, and he doesn't know
Hit
the
escape.
workaround.
Refresh and then hit escape.
Yes, if you refresh and hit escape, then it will show you the page. So, yeah.
See this
So
S-hat's face.
do you know who introduced SOPA?
You did.
No, but close. Lamar
You're a
Smith.
constituent, so it was
Yeah,
you.
Lamar Smith.
Lamar.
Your fault.
Lamar Smith.
Lamar Cranston.
San Antonio, Texas. Guess where I live right now?
Did you live there before the election or after the election?
So guess who's getting a license in Texas this week and will be voting next time and not be voting for him?
Lamar
Josh.
Smith.
Oh,
This guy.
Bill Needles.
Josh?
Josh?
No, me.
Who's got
I live
two
here,
thumbs is not voting for Lamar Smith. Alan.
Yeah.
He's been in office since 1987, so he's got that going for him.
Yeah, well. This is a big technology town.
Is
This
it really?
like- yeah.
I mean, you
AT&T
moved
center's
there. I
here.
think that just occurred, right?
This
that
that only
was-
occurred because I just had to transfer for, military stuff. But there's a lot of between here and Austin, there's a lot of technology stuff in this
Yes,
section of Texas.
I will agree with that.
Big time.
All right, so the anti-pick is don't vote for that guy if you happen to live near Allen.
Yeah.
Seems easy enough. Podcast at pcper.com. If you want to find out what we are doing, obviously the best place to go is pcper.com. The end. Just go to pcper.com. That's a great place to go.
Or check your local community sexual offender list. I'm sure you'll find Ken there.
Oh.
No, he can't even reply to you here. That's so mean.
Ken.
PCPer.com/podcast is where you go if you want to hear more offensive remarks and share them with your family. PCPer.com/podcast. And then, of course, you've got Twitter.com/PCPer. That's where all of our news gets posted to right away if you want to keep up with our stories and news articles about all the topics we discuss on the podcast, plus all the other ones that we don't have time to. That is the place to go. And Facebook.com/PCPer if you'd rather get the news that way. And then, of course, if you want to see all the videos, YouTube.com/PCPer is the place to go. It's where you can see videos of things like that enormous, ginormous Cooler Master Cosmos 2. You can see videos of the Lucid demonstrations that we saw at CES. You can see videos of my new favorite laptop that I don't actually have yet, the HP NV14 Spectre that we talked about during our CES shows. There's all kinds of videos there. Make sure you check that out. You can subscribe there as well. YouTube.com/PCPer. We appreciate that. So, with that, we will end the show. We will see you next week on our normal scheduled regular time. Wednesday evening, 10 p.m. is when we record it. Live.twit.tv is the address for that. And again, if you maybe are checking in at the end, why are we all in black and white? Did all of our cameras die at the same time? No. Stop censorship. SOPA, PIPA, we are protesting by being less pale than normal. So,
And one other thing to add to that, be sure to listen to our podcast every week, obviously. But potentially February 8th, we could have an interesting guest appearance by someone you may or may not be interested in, but it's something different and something we have never tried before. So tune in and see if it
Is it
works,
Ken?
or if tune in, tune out, and
And
no.
be potentially
I don't do that.
really, really good. Just put it
Could
down.
be
you guys are
interesting.
hyping- You guys are hyping this up a lot. Here's the surprise: we're not even going to have a podcast on that day, so
Yeah,
it's going to be
there you
It's
go.
going to be a shock.
You got to
right?
tune in for
I gotta
nothing.
try. I got to try something new. Silence. Nice. All right, so we will talk to you guys soon. I'm Ryan Trout.
Seacrest out. Jeremy Hellstrom.
Josh Walrath.
Alan Malventano.
And I think we just have to end the podcast with Jeremy's dapper styling and look.
Dapper.
Please.
Oh,
There we go.
yeah.
Seacrest out.
Hey, happy birthday,
So
Jeremy.
flop.
Hey,
Why, thank you.
happy birthday.
36
you're
years
a-
old, soaking
What a
wet.
stunning 26-year-old.
Where's your
37.
Dos Equis?
37?
37.
A lot more years than I thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of years between 36 and 37.